Welcome to Mother-Daughter Projects. I'm Steph, and today I'm going to show you how to make a crate for the full series of Harry Potter books. Now, my nephew recently turned 10. I bought him the full series of Harry Potter, but it came in a cardboard box. It looked cool, but that was not going to last. So that was the inspiration to make this full wood version. Now, I actually made a Harry Potter style crate a couple years ago for my first nephew's 10th birthday. And so I used that for inspiration for this project, but this one was to hold all the books. And so it needed to be a certain size and a certain shape for that to work. And on that first crate, we used a homemade stain design, so we wanted to try that again for this crate. To make the box, we're using a 1x12 common board and a 1-inch square dowel. I'll put the cut list on our website at motherdaughterprojects.com, but all the measurements are based off a set of full series Harry Potter books that I bought at Books A Million. This is a 10-inch blade, and this is how the miter saw typically works. But if I turn this knob, I can slide the saw to make wider cuts. I always start by cutting a fresh edge on purchased lumber, and then I went on to make the rest of the cuts. This is a battery-powered miter saw that uses two 36-volt batteries. We also have a Makita wet dry vac hooked up, which helps collect some sawdust. And for a couple of the thinner cuts, we're using our saw stop table saw. Lastly, I cut 4 wood dowels for the edges of the box that will hold up the lid. With all the cuts made, we assembled the box and it worked perfect. To lift the lid, I wanted 2 finger holes on the sides, basically like half of a circle. We tried different methods and came up with this idea by placing 2 boards side by side and using a hole saw to make a hole right in the middle, leaving a half circle on each board. And it worked exactly as I wanted, so we repeated the same process on the other side. You notice we have a board underneath, and this is to protect our work surface as the drill bit is a little bit longer than the hole saw. Then we made holes on each side for the handles. We're using a Craig cabinet hardware jig to mark the holes. This makes it really easy to get exact placement of the holes. Once I had the holes on one side, I placed the other side underneath and drilled larger holes for both of the rope handles. With everything cut, we did a rough assembly and then drew an outline on the bottom that we were going to use as a guide to cut the felt, and this felt will be used to protect the books when they touch the box. I didn't have enough of one color, so I went with green for my nephew's house of Slytherin and blue for my house of Ravenclaw. We'll add the felt at the very end. Next, we glued and brad nailed everything into place. This is Titebond 2 wood glue that we're applying with Rockler silicone glue brushes. For the 4 inside square dowels, we're just gluing those into place and waited for them to dry. Next, we used distressing tools to distress the entire box. You might be wondering where these words came from. Well, this technique didn't actually end up working in the end, but we'll talk about what we did in the What We Learned section at the end of our video. We decided to stain the box with natural materials. We're going to be using black tea as a pre-stained water-based conditioner. This is made by steeping 10 black tea bags in hot water and allowed to brew for at least 5 minutes or more. Mom applied the tea with a foam brush, and you can see it added a very slight amber hue. The stain is made by soaking steel wool in vinegar for a few days. The longer it sits, the darker it will get. Mom used a coffee filter to remove any particles and then applied the stain. You'll see it darkens the longer it stays on the wood. This is an interesting technique as you don't know how it's going to turn out in the end, but if you want more consistency, you might want to go with a traditional stain. The words were applied with a faux wood burning technique, and as you can see, it started to fade as the stain was applied. This is the next day, and you can't even make out the words anymore. So we ended up applying a stencil, which I made in my Cricut Maker, and just spray painting the words on. Next, we put the felt in place and added the handles. We're using nylon store-bought rope from the Home Depot. I cut it to size and burned the ends to keep it from fraying. You'll notice the knots take up some space within the box, which is another reason I use the square dowels, so it holds the lid up and has extra space for the handles. So here's a look at the first crate I made a few years ago, and here's the current one I made for the Harry Potter book series. We use the same stain technique, but you can see we got very different results. And here's a good look at the books in the box, and you can see the little extra space for the handles. We tried to account for the little bit of space you need to grab each book, but we probably could have used about 1/4 of an inch more space for comfort. The lid works just as expected. And you can see once the first book is out, the rest are easy to remove. And the bottom felt just adds a little bit extra protection where the books touch the bottom. What we learned. Now I talked about in the video that we tried a faux wood burn technique, and we did that with something called a scorch pin. You basically just fill in what you want to look wood burned, and then you use a heat gun to heat it up, and then it looks like it's been burned on the wood. It's really cool, but for some reason it didn't work. I don't know if it interacted with the stain in an odd way, and that's kind of why it didn't work, but we've tried it on other things before and it did work, so I wouldn't say that's a bad product, it just didn't work in our situation. So we ended up, like you saw, just using a stencil and spray painting it on, so it wasn't exactly what we wanted, but it still worked out in the end. Now those 2 holes on the top of the box, I actually realized could be used to hold wands. So my nephew does not have his wand yet. When he is 11, I'm gonna take him to Harry Potter World at Universal Studios and we're gonna have a wand pick him. So once he has his wand, then I'll let him know that that's kind of a cool place that he can store his wand. And that's it. My nephew absolutely loved the crate. I'm so happy that I was able to make this for him, and he's had the books for a couple months now, and he's already on the 5th Harry Potter book, and that's exciting for me because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I love that my nibblings are embracing Harry Potter and loving it just as much as me. So thanks for joining. If you want to see more projects from us, be sure to visit us at mother-daughterprojects.com. All right, see you next time.